Howdy again, it's Ben in Beta, and today I'm going to get into the next part of my beginner detailing series. If you haven't seen the video before this in the series, it's about different things you need just to get started with detailing, and there's a couple different ways you can do that. One of them is with a pressure washer, and this is the pressure washer I chose for the beginner detailing series for right now. There's actually a new one coming out from Ryobi that seems kind of interesting. It's not out yet. That's gonna be about $150. I've seen that one a little bit on some of the YouTube channels, and it actually has a short gun and a little bit longer pressure hose. It's basically made just for detailing, so that one might be kind of cool. This one is actually only $109 from Westinghouse on Amazon, and it is the EPX3100V. And I chose it for a number of different reasons. I did talk a little bit about this in my beginner detailing video, but here's why I chose it. The biggest reason is this has no proprietary connections on it for connecting any of the accessories. And what that's going to allow us to do is build this system out to make your experience a lot better when you're using the pressure washer. But just to let you kind of know what comes with this one, you get the unit itself. I would say this is right around maybe 10 pounds, something like that. So it's really super light and it's compact. That's another reason why I picked this one up. I didn't want one of the ones I had to pull around. I wanted something I could put up on a shelf, just get it out of the way when I'm not using it, that kind of thing. And that also fit the bill really nicely. So the front, you just have your high pressure output here. And this is a 2100 PSI unit, according to Westinghouse. And the other reason I chose it is because I want the highest GPM I could for the price. And this was the highest I found at that $110 price. It was 1.76 gallons per minute. Really, this is just an entry-level pressure washer for people to get started with washing their car. And that's why it's part of the beginner detailing series. So you also have an on and off button up here, nice big chunky, easy to use. I actually like that quite a bit. And then in the back, you've got your cord, which looks to be about 35 feet. And it does have a reset switch in it, which is great. You've got your water inlet back here. And then you've got a 15 degree and a 25 degree nozzle. Now, normally I like to wash with a 40 degree nozzle just because the spray pattern's a little bit better for washing a vehicle, but 25 will do a really good job. The 15 degree might be a little bit too much to use on a car. You really don't need that. 25 is fine. Now in the box, they also said if you review this on Amazon, they'll send you a set of 5 nozzles, which includes a 40. So that's kind of cool. All right, as far as other accessories go, you get a turbo nozzle basically. You get your extension wand, and this is where all your accessories are going to connect. So it's got a quick connect on it, which that's nice. And we'll be using that today, give that a try. And then you've got your foam cannon. Now these almost never are great, so I don't expect this to be too awesome, to be honest, but it is a quick connect at the end. And you do have a soap adjustment, which is good, and you can adjust the spray pattern, which is kind of cool as well. So we'll see how this turns out in the end. But normally these aren't great. This is probably only like 500 milliliters total. So we'll see again how this works. Then you get your kind of standard gun with this attachment point where you have to screw the extension onto, which is fine. It does have a trigger guard for when it's off. Trigger pull isn't terrible, it's fine. It's just your standard plastic gun. And then it comes with a 25-foot hose. So one of the power tips I'd give you as a beginner detailer is if you can take your hose out of the box and set it in the sun for a while first, it becomes much more pliable and easier to use and doesn't want to tangle as much. It kind of gets rid of the memory that's in there. And that's what I've done here. So I've left this kind of sitting out in the sun. It's nice and warm now. It's actually much more flexible than it was before. So that's going to help kind of keep me from getting tangled up, hopefully, when I'm using this later on. So connection wise, the high pressure hose goes in the front, kind of like that, and then you screw it on. So you're gonna get the same thing here. You're gonna slip it in and screw it on. In a future video, we're gonna start putting on different accessories. One of those will be quick connects, which we could use with this, or if you purchase any other accessories like a short gun, we're gonna kind of try to upgrade this a little bit, but keep it on a lower end for people, and then also show you what happens when you upgrade it with higher end accessories and just see if there's a difference or not. So anyway, that's pretty much how that works. And now it's going to be time to go ahead and wash the vehicle. So one suggestion I had from a viewer was to see the whole thing from start to finish when I wash. So one thing I'm not going to include is filling up the bucket, putting some water in here, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to show you that part, but I will try to film it from beginning to end at a couple different angles so you can see how long it actually takes to wash a vehicle in the more traditional way that people are used to washing their vehicle with like a hose, or in this case a pressure washer and soap, that kind of stuff. Now we are going to use the 1 bucket method today. I will show the 2 bucket method in the future. So DIY Detail and others teach a method that's chemical, rinse, chemical, agitation, rinse. In this case, we're going to foam it with the foam cannon. We'll rinse it to get as much gunk off as we can. There is some salt and things like that from the last few weeks from snow and the salt on the roads, that kind of stuff. Then we're going to foam it again. We'll wash it while it's foamed, and that's going to keep everything lubricated really well. So it's going to increase the lubricity of everything, make sure that when we're using the wash media or the wash mitt that we're going to use on the surface, that we're not scratching anything or marring any of the surfaces. And then when we're done with that, we will rinse it one more time, and then we'll dry it. And because we're using a traditional method today, we are going to use a drying aid and try to help make sure that we're, again, not marring or scratching the paint when we dry it off. The reason we need to do that is we'll have rinsed off all the soap, so there will be no lubricity left on the paint. It's just going to be straight water, and that's not enough to keep from scratching the paint, that kind of thing, or marring it. On a vehicle you might not care about, maybe you don't care, but we will be using a little bit of product there, and I'll talk about those when we flip to the other side of the house and get the truck ready. But that's going to make sure that when we dry the vehicle, it dries a little bit faster and easier, and again, doesn't leave behind anything. Right, Rue? Right. All right, so let's get to the other side and get my truck washed. All right, so I wanted to address one elephant in the room, because if you've seen a lot of my other videos, you know that I really like active products. I had the Active 2.0, I now have the Active 2.3. And you might wonder, why am I not recommending these to beginners? And there's a real big reason for that. You're just starting out. What if you don't like it and you spent $300 or $600 on a pressure washer, and now you just have to sell it and lose a bunch of money? So that's the main reason. If you're just getting into it, there is absolutely no reason why you need one of these more expensive pressure washers to just get started. Upgrading your pressure washer is something you're going to want to do later on. That being said, if you have a bunch of extra money burning a hole in your pocket and you're thinking, I would like a more upgraded pressure washer, why would I want to do that? The Active 2.0, the Active 2.3, and many others out there, what you're getting for that is generally something that's more repairable, something that's serviceable, and will last you longer. So like this Westinghouse right here, most of these kinds of pressure washers are rated for about 100 hours. And while that doesn't sound like a lot, and you think about it, it kind of is, because if you're only washing your vehicle even once per weekend, the most you're gonna have it on is probably like 20 or 30 minutes out of the entire wash at the very max, even if you're washing a couple of cars. So realistically, you're probably gonna have that like 2 years before you really need to replace it, and that's if you wash it all the time. One big benefit is these are often rated for you like 250 hours before the motor might go bad, but you can also replace some of the parts in it. This one actually has oil in it you have to change, so it adds a little bit of responsibility. Another reason why you might not want to upgrade right away. So that's one of the reasons why an upgrade is nice. But for the most part, you're getting the same kind of accessories. This is an okay foam cannon. It's not wonderful. It is better than one that came with Westinghouse, but this is basically the same gun. You get the same wand with the same connects. Now, with the active ones, you do get steel braided hoses, and with the 2.0, you only get a 25-foot hose, so you're probably gonna have to replace that anyway. With the 2.3, you do get a 40-foot hose, and this is actually quite a nice hose. So that's one area where there's an upgrade. But again, generally speaking, there's just no reason for a beginner to have to jump into this right away, especially if you don't know if you're gonna be using it often enough to really reap the benefits of it, or if you just don't enjoy it enough. I have this because I really love washing vehicles and it's fun for me to do. Plus it gives me a nice comparison against other things. But most normal people, you just don't need that. So that's why I didn't really talk about upgrading to something like this. This does have all the abilities to do the quick connects and all that kind of stuff, but there's just not really any reason for somebody who's brand new, just getting started, to really upgrade to something like this right out of the gate. All right, so just like that, we are now in the front of the house, truck's pulled out, and I'm more or less set up and ready to go. So what are you gonna need as a beginner to be able to wash your vehicle? One, you need water in this case, because we are using a pressure washer. So I have this Flexola Pro hose. Any hose is going to work for this. It's not a big deal. This one has a quick connect on the end of it, so I am going to add a quick connect to the end of the Westinghouse just to make this easier. Otherwise, you really don't need that. You do need a hose, and this will just thread right on the end. No problem there. Before we get to the stuff that's on the table, you're also going to need some way to wash things with a bucket. So I've got here 4 gallons of warm water because it's about 50 degrees out today, something like that. So 4 gallons of warm water in here. This is going to be for the main wash. And I know I said 1 bucket and I have 2. You might be saying, well, why do you have 2? This one's just for the wheels. I could probably get away with washing with just 1 bucket, even with the wheels, because they're not super, super dirty, but because my wheel wells are so big, there's just a lot of area to cover there. So it's a little bit better to go with that. Just so you know, there's a little bit all clean in here. I will be adding a little bit of Incredible Suds to this. You'll see that on the table right here. This is a great beginning shampoo for people. It's pH neutral. You really can't mess it up. It gives you really good suds. It's kind of fun to use. So I actually recommend this. It also smells like grape, smells really good. So we'll be using that in both buckets. And because this is a beginner, I'm not using a foamer to foam up my wheels or anything like that this time. I'm just doing what a lot of people would do, is buying some kind of wheel cleaner. Now in this case, this is all clean. It's an all-purpose cleaner, or an APC, you'll hear it referred to as often. And I'm just gonna spray this on the wheels and inside the wheel wells and let it sit for a little bit, let it dwell so it can do its work. And then I'm going to use this wash bucket to wash. And I'm gonna start with the wheels because that's generally the best way to go because it's the dirtiest part of the vehicle. Get those clean, then we'll do the rest. Also on the wheels, I'm gonna use a wheel brush because this works really good for my wheels and tires because they're knobby and kind of hard to get to, and it makes it easier to get kind of inside some of those other pieces in the wheel well. So I like that. And then this is a wheel brush, and that'll get inside the spokes. So I also personally like to have my own towel for my wheels. This is my wheel towel. So that's what I'm gonna use to dry the wheels off later on at the end. So in this bucket already is a grit guard. I'm gonna be adding a grit guard. This one here is from Detail Guards. It's a dirt lock one. It's supposed to be a little bit better at keeping all the dirt underneath. So every time I dunk my wash media, the dirt should go underneath here and get trapped, and I should have cleaner water up in the top when I'm going to use this on the paint. So that's gonna go into here. Then on the paint itself, we'll be using Incredible Suds. Again, going back to that method I talked about where we're gonna foam it with the foam cannon that comes with the system. Then we'll rinse. Then we're gonna foam it again. Then we're gonna wash with the Incredible Suds as well. When we're done, we'll rinse it one more time. Then we're gonna use this Stay Strong detailer to help us dry the vehicle and make sure that we're not gonna scratch or mar the paint, and we give a little bit of lubrication when we're using the towels at the end. So for washing, I have a Rag Company wash mitt that I like. And then for drying on the vehicle, I'll be using this drying blanket from DIY Detail, and it's quite big and quite heavy. This has a really high GSM. We'll talk about all that kind of stuff later on, but it is a good drying towel. There's lots of those out there. And then I also have one of the Gauntlet Rag Company drying towels for some of the areas that might be harder to get to, or if this is getting too wet, that kind of thing. So I do have a measuring device to measure out my chemicals to try to get the right dilutions. It's a little less of a big deal with Incredible Suds. You can kind of put what you want in there. The more you use, the sudsier it's gonna be, but you know, you don't wanna go too overboard either because then you're just wasting product. So you can measure things out with that. And then really importantly, I have these gloves. So we're gonna definitely put those on today, and you should use gloves when you detail because you're using chemicals. And then we have our EPX3100 over here. This should be ready to go. So one of the things we're gonna do first is hook up the water, make sure we're getting water flow through the system before we do anything else. Make sure that everything's going through all the hoses before we turn it on and use any of the high pressure stuff. So it's always important to test that, not just the first time, but every time. Just make sure everything is working the way it's supposed to, you're not getting leaks all over the place, that kind of thing. So I'm gonna do that now. Once that's all connected, I'll show you the testing part. All right, so everything is hooked up now, and I did put the extension on the end of the wand here, so that's done. Water is hooked up, and I am using a quick connect as I said I would. So I'm gonna turn the water on, and we're gonna see if there's any leaks in the system really quick. So first thing to check. No power. All right, so thus far, no leaks. So the next thing I'm gonna do is just test and make sure that water's coming through. And that takes a little bit of time. But we want a nice steady flow of water, which we're getting to here. I can still hear a little air in the system yet. All right. Now it's a pretty nice steady flow of water at this point. And especially the first time you turn it on, getting water through the system is really kind of important. Now the next thing I'm going to show you here, hopefully I won't go too far off screen, is I want to get this kind of untangled a little bit. Now again, I had left this out before just to try to get it to be as pliable as possible. And it's, you know, we're not in too bad of a spot here. So this is pretty good. I can get it out pretty far, get all the way to the back of the vehicle from where I'm at right here, probably to about half the back. And I should be able to get around a good portion of the front without moving the unit, which is nice. So that's good. It's in a good spot. Before we turn the unit on, I have to plug it in. And then we're gonna wash the wheels first anyway. The only thing we're gonna need there is the pressure washer for that part at the end. So we're gonna do that really quick. I also have another camera on the other side. So when I'm on that side, I should be able to switch to that camera to show you what's going on over there. All right, system is now plugged in. So we're gonna turn it on for the first time and give it a little run here, make sure it works. All right, here we go. I'm just trying to get to that nice steady flow again. And we did say we're gonna use a 25-degree nozzle, so let's just put that on there and see what that's gonna look like really quick. So you can see what the spray pattern is gonna look like when we do that. Again, pointing it away from things the first time you put it on is smart because it could come out of there. Sometimes you think it's seated and it's not. So here we go. So that's a pretty good spray pattern, I would say, not bad. So this is ready to go. All right, so let's start on the wheels really quickly, get those done. I'm gonna throw a little bit of Incredible Suds into my wash bucket here. I've got about 3 gallons in here and 4 gallons in the other one right now. Since it's my wheels, I'm not gonna care as much. Oh, there we go. But let's throw like a little bit in here, half an ounce or something like that. Goes all the way up to 2 ounces. And you can see that this is gonna be really thick. And that's good right there. We're gonna dump it in, and then I'm gonna just try to wash it out because this is really thick. This formulation is one of the thicker ones in terms of shampoos on the market, but it is really good, and it's really good for sudsing. And so it's great for washing your vehicle when you do it this method. So I'm just trying to get as much out of there as I can. All right, so this will be good for the next round here in a little bit. I'm gonna get my brushes ready. We can stick those in the bucket. I'm also gonna put some All Clean on the wheels, which we talked about before as well. Always put these somewhere so you don't trip over them. So I'm gonna put All Clean on the wheels. Normally I wouldn't do it this way, I would use a foamer, but this is sort of more what I think a beginner would do, and there's nothing wrong with this. This is diluted to 15:1 automatically from DIY Detail. If you buy it in gallons, you need to dilute it yourself. That's the most economical way to do it, because this will take quite a bit of product to use. This is why a foamer is a little bit better option. But let's get some product on here. The foamer, if you use that, will do a better job of like sticking to the product. You can leave it sit on there a little bit longer and dwell. It won't dry as fast. So it's kind of nice. But today, like I said, we're doing it like I think a lot of first timers would do. And that's okay. All right, now that that's on there, we're gonna go ahead and clean everything up. So I'm gonna start on the wheels here. I'm getting some good suds on there, which is great. These may not come as clean as I normally would get them with the foam either, we'll see. But they should come pretty clean. It's not ridiculously dirty today. But you can see that this brush makes things pretty quick. And it's really nice and easy on the rims. You're not gonna scratch anything. Get into all these holes here really good. Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and do my flares here, my fender flares. Just because the All Clean's gonna do a little bit better job getting the gunk off of there, and those are obviously really dirty. And then we'll get the insides here. And I'm just going with anything I can touch, basically, with the brush. And I'm not really trying to get like an award-winning job done today. I'm just trying to clean it up to keep it looking good for as long as possible. I also happen to have a lot of felt in here, so that just cleans kind of weird. So let's get you a little bit closer here. So if I can let it sit on there for a little bit, everything's gonna come a little bit cleaner, but that's kind of what it looks like in there. And I did get all the surfaces I could. And now I'm gonna quickly use that barrel brush on here as well. And I'm just rotating it on every use here as I go around. Again, these weren't the most disgusting wheels ever. I haven't driven it a whole lot lately, which is fine. And I should have started from the top there and worked my way down. That was my fault. Got distracted for a second. All right, so that's pretty much how you do a wheel. And then we're just gonna rinse it off. So I'm gonna move the camera back a little bit so we don't get it all wet. All All right, first time using the pressure washer on a surface. And so far, I think it's doing a pretty good job. It seems to put up quite a bit of water. Starting from top to bottom, just like I would on any other surface. All right, it's pretty good and fairly clean, I think. So we'll see. Oftentimes when these dry, they show more dirt, but not bad. Let's move to the next one. Try to get you in a little bit closer. Now, my driveway is pretty steep, so it probably looks a little bit weird, but that's right. So this video might end up being fairly long because I'm not really cutting a whole lot out of it. I will cut things where I'm just changing camera angles or if my batteries die or something like that, because I don't think that's necessarily what people want to see. All right, it's pretty good. And you can see you're going to use pretty much this entire bottle by doing this method, which is why the foamer is good. I'll show you that in the future though, how to use one of those or what you might want to look for there. You can see just how good that incredible suds up. It suds up really well, however you would want to say that. It does a really nice job. It's pretty impressive, honestly. Again, my truck wasn't the dirtiest in the world, but it was fairly dirty from the salt. You can kind of see it here, I think. Certainly could have been worse. And I'm just trying to make sure I get inside of all the spokes fairly well, get the face pretty well before I do the rest. And I'll probably also do my rock rails because those are pretty dirty too. And I didn't really coat them. And they get a lot of salt and debris on them. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get those right away. And we'll get the barrels. And again, any pH neutral soap, any kind of wheel cleaner will work. The wheel cleaners that you might get from like Walmart and that kind of thing, they might be a kind of hard on your body and your nose, whereas like All Clean's not that at all. Something to keep in mind, but they still work. All right, let's wash it down. Guess you missed that part, but that's okay. That's what happens when you try to move the camera around for everybody. And I will get my rock rails too. I'll probably speed some of this stuff up and just tell you how long it took. I'd say let me know in the comments if you want me to speed these parts up and put some music to them, which is probably what I'm gonna do. In the future, if you'd rather have them just run, let me know that too. You can kind of get a sense. I'll tell you if it's 2x or 3x, how fast we're going, so you just can 3x or 2x at a time. But one half of the vehicle's done with the wheels, so let's do the other half really quick, and then it's time to wash. Now, as far as how this is working so far, this Westinghouse 3100, I think it's working pretty good. It is very different than what I have with my active. When I pull the trigger on my active, it pushes back really hard, so there's definitely more pressure, more water coming out of that one than what we're getting here. But it's not bad. I'm pretty impressed by it, to be honest. For the price of $109, it's not bad. And I'm guessing as we add accessories to this, it's gonna turn out to be a pretty nice little system. All right, other side, let's go. All right, since I did kind of one tire at a time there, I'm actually gonna try to do this a little bit more quickly than I did the other side. So I'm gonna try to do both of these and the rail all kind of at the same time, just to show you how I would probably normally do it. And I'll probably do this tire first because it's in the sun, but I'm spraying it last. I'm getting a little bit of overspray in the truck. I'm not super worried about that at the moment because it's going to get washed right after this. And all clean can go on paint and stuff too. It's not a big deal. It's just more made for, you know, tougher spots like these. All right. All clean's done for today. Let's get these wheels taken care of quick. I'd love to know in comments what products you guys like to use. Even if you're new, what have you tried? What have you liked? What have you not liked? What products have been good? Whether that's chemicals or pressure washers or whatever. What have you really liked and what have you not? It's always interesting to find some of that stuff out. And even here, we still did chemical first, if you notice. We sprayed on the cleaner first, and then we applied something to it. So we could have rinsed first too, but I'm not quite as worried about this stuff as I would be the paint. Some people would want to rinse that first, and that's totally fine to do. But like, you're not going to scratch your tire. You might scratch your rims, so in that case, if you have really expensive rims, you might want to do that. You might want to wash, rinse first. So put the chemical on, rinse, put some more chemical on, and then wash just like you would the rest of your paint. Like I said, I'm a little less worried about plastics and things like that because they're already scratched on my truck from being going off-road, that kind of stuff. Kind of forgot that back here. I'll do that quick too. And we just got to get the rock rails. Just got to rinse, we're good. And normally I wouldn't have to. This is one of the things here. I know you're not seeing what's happening at the moment, but let me see if I can give you a better view of what's happening over here. So I had to move my hose so that I could move the system, and now I've got to deal with this cord. And this is what happens with all these cheap systems. These things suck, and you have to really screw around with them all the time, and I don't like that. But we got it so that we can hopefully reach everything now on this side. And looks like I'm probably gonna have to move it one more time. I wanna get the front. And this is where upgrades are a big deal because I'm at the end of my cord length there, so I should probably actually move it back to the front, but I don't want to, so we'll see what happens. So one of the upgrades that's really nice to have, or getting one that has a longer cable, 40 feet would be nice here. That would get me pretty far around the vehicle. Now the Ryobi one's supposed to have that, but you can buy upgraded hoses pretty easy for about $50. So basically for the same price as the Ryobi, you could get a 50-foot like Uberflex or Flexzilla hose, and that would work too. So this is pretty much meeting my expectations in terms of this part. This is probably my least favorite piece of using these less expensive pressure washers. But the wheels are done, so let's get the rest of the vehicle done. All right, for the rest of this, I'm probably gonna try to turn on my camera on the other side and use that and not move this back and forth. It'll take less time that way. And we're just gonna try to get through this fairly quickly, but the first thing I'm gonna do here is go ahead and put some liquids in here. This is still just water at this point, and it's nice and warm, so go ahead and do that. Leave a little bit for the soap. We'll try to do a little bit of a measurement here. So we're gonna do, try an ounce in here, see how it goes, I guess. So here we are, about an ounce. And we're gonna pour what we can in here. It's not gonna all go in because it's so thick. We'll get what we can in here, and then the rest of it's gonna go into the wash bucket anyway. So that's good there. And then we'll just put the same ounce in the wash bucket. And the wash bucket's already sudsing. We'll see how much actual suds come out of this. But one thing that's really important with incredible suds especially, but everything really that you use in a foam can, you want to get it mixed really well, and this stuff's so thick, you really want to mix it. Now this is a really thick mixing of this. Normally in a foam cannon, if I used an ounce, it would be like 700 to 1,000 milliliters of water. This is pretty thick, so that should hopefully help us put the suds on the vehicle. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to foam it. We're gonna rinse it, we're gonna foam it again, then we're gonna hand wash it. What we really want is just, as long as it's kind of foamy, it doesn't have to be super thick like you see on Instagram or anything like that. Even if it's kind of runny, it's gonna do a pretty good job of pulling the dirt off the vehicle onto the ground, just meaning that we're gonna get the big chunks of stuff off so that when we do the contact wash, there's less to take off with the contact. We're not gonna mar the paint, scratch the things, that kind of stuff, even with a 1 bucket method. So that's what we're hoping for. I have no idea how this is gonna go because I've never used it before, but let's give it a try. So I'm gonna have to take off this tip here, which I'm gonna put on the unit itself because it's got storage for that. What was the tip I gave you earlier? Whenever you connect something, you want to test it first. So I think it's on there, but I don't know, so let's test it. Okay. I've got it all the way to soap, and I have no idea what this is gonna do when we adjust it, but we'll give it a try, so we'll see how it goes. Move this back out of my way a little bit. All right, here we go. Let's soap it up. I'm gonna try to go ahead and put that up. And actually you can see how much we've used already, quite a bit in just a little bit of time, which is unfortunate. Probably not gonna get the wheels too much because I've already done them. As far as the thickness of the foam goes, it's actually not too bad. It's better than I thought it was gonna be. But our problem is we've already run out, so that's the issue there. So this is gonna be a little bit of a problem for sudsing. It does do a good job, but we just went through a whole ounce of product in like no time at all. That's not great. I would probably have to use like 3 or 4 ounces of product down here. I don't really wanna do that, so I might go grab one of my other foam cannons really quick. All right, so you kind of saw what happened with the foam cannon it came with. I just don't wanna waste that much product. I don't have a lot of incredible suds left yet. And I'll have to order more no matter what, I suppose, but I'm gonna put that same amount in, but now you can see I've got quite a bit more liquid. I have about 800 milliliters of liquid in here right now. So we'll put in 1 ounce and see how that goes. And again, I'll just show you, so I'm not cheating. I was actually pretty impressed with how that put out foam. It just used up all the product so quickly that that's not super useful. This has got a wide mouth in it too, that I can kind of get it in there a little bit. And I'm not really worried about that soap sitting on there. I don't think it's drying too much, so not a big deal, but it is sunny out, so we do want to try to keep it from drying on the vehicle if we can. So this is the McKillen's foam cannon, so not a real expensive one. It's about $55. Not a real cheap one though either. All right, let's connect this one and see how it goes. Again, once we connect something new, we should test it. Okay. Pretty good actually, maybe. With this one I can change the foam pattern a little bit too, so. All right, here we go. There are lots of other foam cannons in the market, by the way, but this one's the one that I had the longest. You can see we still have quite a bit of product left after doing about the same amount of the vehicle. And I'm going to move around to the other side. Whenever you do that, the big issue you run into is your cord's getting tangled up when you have to move this, and you can see that's already happened to me here. Try to put this like that, maybe. All right, I'll get the front now, I guess. And I don't know if you can tell on camera or not, but this is a little bit thicker foam than what we were getting with one it came with, by just a little bit at least. Actually quite a bit thicker, I would say. And we still have some left here, even after getting around the entire vehicle. All right, so now what we're doing is we're letting it sit a little bit on the vehicle before we rinse. And what that's gonna do is let it do its job. So we started on this side, we'll probably start on this side to wash from top to bottom again. Just trying to get things in a way that I can do my job. And I still have some left here. It's probably not quite enough, honestly, to do the rest of the vehicle, but I can just add some water to this. We'll see how it goes. I actually forgot to mix it. Like I said, you're supposed to. And you notice it got foamier towards the end. So I'm just gonna add some water to this and I think it'll be fine. In fact, I might just add some from the wash bucket. That will be plenty. All right, so we did our foaming. Now we need to do our rinsing. And for that, we're gonna use this ladder. And this is something I forgot to talk about in my things you might need for detailing. In the past, I've only just used the step ladder and that's worked great. Nothing wrong with that, just 2 steps. This thing I picked up on sale, I think it was like $75 when it was on sale. Something, maybe it was even less than that, like last Christmas, something like that. And it's a Werner ladder and it is really good and allows you to do a lot more in one go and not have to move your ladder around so much, which is nice. So this doesn't have to be perfect, by the way. I'm just trying to rinse it before we wash it. Again, testing before we spray the vehicle. All right, here we go. One thing that is nice about these extensions is that you can get a lot farther without having to move your ladder. So the major advantage of using this ladder and the extension is I've rinsed the entire top of the vehicle and I don't really need to go to the other side right now. I will need to do that when I wash it, but I've gotten everything I need to get. So that's great for the rinse part. All right, headed back to the other side. So a couple things I would say about this Westinghouse is it's not super loud, it's not too bad, it's not unenjoyable, it's not like an awful noise or anything like that. It does seem to work pretty good, and I do think it puts out quite a bit of water in comparison to some of the less expensive ones that I've seen before, so that's also good. All right, let's keep going. All right, so part 1 is done. Now it's time to foam it one more time, and then we're gonna go ahead and wash it. Now I know I'm not using the foam can that came with it. That is one thing I'd probably recommend. So I'm gonna try not to foam the tires this time because I don't really need to do those again. So you can see this is quite a bit thicker foam than what we were getting out of the can that came with it, with still 1 ounce of product in it, or even less. Get the other side. And again, a lot of moving around, but it is what it is. You get kind of good at it after a while. All right, I'm putting a little extra foam on that side because I need it not to dry. So now it's time to wash. We'll clean this foam cannon out at the end as well. It's really important to do that, but we'll do that at the end. And now what we're gonna do is we have our incredible suds in this bucket, but we need to foam up a little bit, so we're gonna go ahead and make that happen really quick. Again, test it. All right, we got some foam. That's what we want. So this time, we're gonna be taking this wash mitt, we're gonna dunk it in there, and no pressure on any surfaces whatsoever. We're just gonna clean all the surfaces off in nice straight lines, basically. Don't have to do circles or anything like that, but we're gonna start at the top. And I need to get the windshield too. Just make sure we get everything really good. So this is where I'm gonna have to use my ladder here, or my work surface, in a couple different spots, because I have to get the top of the topper as well, Kuat rack system. Back of the mirror while I'm up here, in front of the mirror. Okay. As long as I'm close by here, I'm just gonna try to get a little bit more of the hood. So I'm not tall enough to get the middle, but that should do it. And it was kind of fun to do the suds. I always like that part. It's one of my favorite parts. All right, let's get the rest of this real quick. And now we did that part. You can flip the sponge every once in a while too. I didn't actually flip it, probably should have there, but it'll keep you going a little bit more quickly too if you just flip it to the other side. And I'll get what I can in between here as well. Try to keep the glass clean if I can. Now my rack system's not coated, and it's gonna get dirty and scratched and stuff, so I'm not super worried about it. But before I would put the sponge on paint again, I'd definitely at least flip it, if not clean it in the bucket. All right, that side's done. So when I put this in the bucket, you can see I'm just trying to get what I can out of there before I move on to my next section. Which is just gonna be the top anyway. So I'm just gonna bring this with me. And you can see I'm not too worried about how much water or anything that I'm using with this. Rinseless, you would not put this much on your wash media, your sponge, or whatever you're using. You definitely wouldn't do that. It's a little bit different with more of this standard wash that we're doing here today. And if I did it one way on the other side, I should try to do it the same way on this side so I don't forget something and like miss my mirror or something like that. Go ahead and get the front of the truck too. It's very, very lubricious light right now with all these studs on here. It's just sliding over the top of everything. Just what you want, and we'll flip it over to do the rest here. And you can see I'm actually going pretty quickly because the whole surface is already full of studs. It's not going to take me a really long time to get this done. And then we'll continue around the vehicle and wash it off. I don't need to do my wheels because I already did those, so just keep that in mind if you're wondering why I'm not doing that. I like to do boxes on my windows. I'll keep those as clean as I can. But right now my truck's feeling really clean after all of that because that foaming does a really good job of pulling all that dirt off. You can see after it's done, I probably should have done a close-up of it. trying to keep things from drying up on the truck. I usually don't like to wash in the sun, but here I'm gonna have to more often just because of the way my house faces. Unless I wash in the garage, which may or may not be possible some of the time. I do tend to feel like I get my truck a little bit cleaner when I do a full wash than I do with rinseless, just because I can get into some of these other areas. To me, it feels like better and easier. And that just might be technique. And we've talked about that. Technique is important because then it doesn't really matter what products you're using necessarily. If you have good technique, the products matter less. It'll be faster at what you do, and you'll do a good job, even without having to buy a whole bunch of crazy stuff, especially if you don't want to. I think about an hour or so, but I'll tell you what, it does take a lot longer to do this when you're also talking and setting up cameras and all that kind of jazz. Now, today I probably could have or should have done half the truck at a time just to have kept it wet the entire time. But I am almost done, so I think we'll be okay. Just barely. The top of the truck's probably drying right now. All right, that's it. Time to rinse and then dry it off and we'll be good. There we go. At least this is pretty easy to move around because it's nice and light. So that part's nice. It is kind of twisting up on me again, which is not fun. The top's still wet, so that's good. The topper is the bad part, probably. Black. And one thing you might notice on my vehicle, if you are brand new to this, that I'm getting these beads on my paint. That's because my vehicle's coated. If your vehicle's not coated, it'll just be more of a sheet, or it'll take kind of a long time for the water to get off of there. That's normal. It's totally fine, but that's a reason to coat your vehicle. So as a quick reminder, we're using this drying blanket right here, and that should help make it pretty quick. So I know, like, Nick says he likes to prime his on the windows, and that's actually not the worst idea. So what I'm gonna do here, spray a little of this detail around there, and this is just gonna, again, provide lubricity and help dry the vehicle more quickly. Okay, that's probably more than enough. And then we would just put a little bit on the surface we're gonna dry. That's it, it smells good. And then hopefully we'll have no streaks or anything like that doing it this way. And it'll dry really quick, which it is. Now the other advantage of gloves is they tend to not leave, you're not gonna leave any fingerprints behind on things, that kind of stuff. And they tend to grip a lot better than your hand would. So yeah, this is doing a nice job on here. Just trying to get some of those parts. Again, just trying to get it a little bit primed, a little bit wet, so it's ready to just grab more water. All right, that's pretty good. So let's get up on top and go from there. You don't need much of any of these products. You just need a little bit. So it's like just enough so you have some on those different parts. And then we're gonna go ahead and lay this out. And the best way to do it is just be able to drag it across like that, or drag it down. And it'll dry the surface. You'll see it better here in a minute. Again, I'm trying not to move the cameras around too much because it just takes a lot of time to do. probably put my drone up actually, I guess, and you can see it. But here we go, one more time. I think you can see from that camera. Now again, if your car's not coated, it might not feel as smooth when you're drying, but you still don't want to use any pressure on there. You're not trying to scratch it. And we'll also talk about in future videos other products you can use, like ceramic sprays on your vehicle if you don't want to put a full ceramic coating on here and you're going to wash your vehicle fairly often to kind of take care of it. You can use the wash clay seal method, which is really, really good and does an awesome job of not only washing your vehicle, but also sealing it and giving you that lubricity and that, basically giving you that water beading effect and that kind of thing, just making your paint really super slick, making it look extra glossy, that kind of thing. So we'll talk about some of that stuff in the future too. All right, so unfortunately my battery died most of the way, at some point during that. I don't know where it died officially, but I do have the truck basically done at this point. All right, so you can see the wheels and tires are quite clean. The paint is quite clean, and you can just see only where I have like nicks and chips and paint, that kind of thing. The glass looking really good. And again, we're on a slope here, so that's why the truck appears to be sloping, because it is. Back looks great. And yeah, I'm really happy with the way it turned out. But the thing is, we're not completely done yet. We're almost done. We have to put everything away. And obviously I don't need to show you how to do that, but there is one more thing we have to do, and it's actually on 2 items. And that is these foam cannons. So these have like little pieces of foam in them, and actually you can kind of see inside this one, maybe. There's actually some foam inside there. And if you don't clean these out properly, that foam will get clogged and they won't work very well. And I actually had that happen to my active foam cannon that I have, which you'll see in future videos too, where it didn't work very well in a couple of videos, and I was like, what is going on? It was because I didn't take the time to clean it out properly. That was my fault. I should have taken more time to clean it out, and I didn't. So we're gonna do that right now and clean these out the way they should be cleaned out. So we're gonna put some water in each of these and run that through these cannons, basically. So I'm gonna go get the water and I'll be right back. All right, as I said, we need to basically run some water through these foam cannons and clean them out before we store them. It's really important that we do that. So again, pointing away from anything, we're just gonna run water through it. We don't want any more suds in there or anything like that. You can see it's still sudsing. So you want that to be completely clear and clean at the end. Now this knob here allows me to adjust for less foam. That should just give me water coming kind of through it without it actually grabbing any of the foam. And again, we're just trying to wash that foam piece out. It's kind of weird because we're talking about foam, but there's a foam piece that's inside there. You can see now it's getting a little bit better. All right, so we rinsed that out pretty good now. So that the next time I would use this, it should foam just as well as it did before. Now you saw kind of what happened. It didn't foam terribly. It just was out of product immediately. Even here, when I just did that, it ran through all the water in here almost instantly. This is one of those things I'd definitely upgrade in the Westinghouse or any of the cheaper units that you're gonna buy. So the next thing you need to know as a beginner detailer for cleanup is I've unplugged the unit and I've turned the water off. We wanna try to run all the water out of all the hoses before we disconnect everything. There's still pressure in the system. And I do want you to see this. Hopefully you can. This is sort of the mess that sort of happens with these cheaper systems. Because the cord's only 20 feet and you have to move around all the time, that's all tangled up. This is all tangled up. That's pretty common. But again, we'll talk about upgrades to these in the future. So let's go ahead and run the water out of the system. We're just depressurizing it at this point, trying to get everything out of here. And then since this has that lance on the end here, the extension, we're gonna go ahead and get rid of that. Nothing seems to have leaked at all. So it's pretty impressive. No leaks in the system. I did put a quick connect on the end for the hose, and that did have some tape on it, but no leaks there at all. All right, so get the water out of here. Okay, and then we can disconnect everything. Now in future videos, we're gonna start upgrading the system a little bit and talk about how much each of those upgrades are. Get this out of here, and I'm also gonna pull the trigger in here because there's water that's inside, and if you don't pull the trigger, then the water doesn't come out. That's bad if it's gonna freeze, which is gonna freeze for us here in the next couple days, so I wanna get all the water out, even though this is gonna go in my basement. Otherwise, I'd leave it outside. And then I need to disconnect the hose on this side. Now this, oh boy, almost disaster there. You definitely don't want it to fall off. Anyway, these have little O-rings on them. These things can go out on you over time. You can just get some of these at like Harbor Freight. Not a big deal. But what I do want to do is try to get all the water out of this. And sometimes I'll even blow through these. So now I know there's no water left in this, and I can wrap it back up. All right, so that's done. Disconnect the hose. And I got the quick connect on there, remember? Okay, and then you're supposed to tip it both ways to get any water out of the system. Let me know in the comments if you thought this whole washing thing was helpful or not. I know some of it's gonna have been lost, unfortunately, but I'd really like to know if you think it was good or bad. I forgot to flip it off too, but I should have done that before I unplugged it probably, so it doesn't come on automatically next time. All right, so now that I've done a complete wash with this system, what do I think of it? This Westinghouse EPX3100V, it's pretty great for $109. I would recommend this to pretty much anybody, to be honest with you. It gets really good reviews on Amazon as well. People seem to like it. The unit itself is very quiet. It's easy to carry around, which is great. I didn't have any problems with it at all. It worked the entire time. I do still wish that it came with a 40-degree nozzle instead of a 25. Now, a couple things that I didn't like about it, but this is pretty much true of almost every pressure washer, and I just want to be clear about that, especially anything between, you know, that $100 to $200 mark. You're not going to get a very good pressure washer hose. It's going to be pretty terrible. This is only 20 feet, and it got all tangled up with all the other cords, which I didn't appreciate, but that's what you get out of the box, and this is what you're gonna get in most other systems. Some will come with longer cables, but again, because it's so stiff, it's really not that helpful. So the other thing I didn't really love was the foam cannon. While it's nice that it's quick connect and it does do the job, you'd have to use an awful lot of soap in here in order to really get the effect you need, and you run through it just so fast that it's not worth, it's just, this is one of the things you're gonna wanna upgrade probably pretty quickly. It does work though, and you just need to use a lot of soap, I guess. You can look at it that way. Otherwise, the gun was pretty good, and the extension wasn't bad for my truck. It's got a little bit of a comfort grip back here. It's a little bit of rubber, and it's not bad for a system like this at all. So if you're looking for an inexpensive pressure washer to get started with detailing, and you want to maybe be able to build on it as time goes on, I would definitely recommend this one. Again, links are in the description. If you use the links, they do benefit my channel. It is really helpful when I'm buying all these things and trying to help other people if you do use the links. But do remember that these videos take a lot of time and effort to make. So if you found it even a little bit helpful, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, especially if you're a beginner detailer and you want to know more about all of this stuff, not just products, but techniques. This series is going to continue for quite some time, and make sure you leave comments as well to let me know what else you want to know, what questions you might have that I can answer for you, either in the comments or in future videos. So the next video in the series is going to be about trying to upgrade this experience a little bit, again, for beginners. How can we upgrade it and make it a little bit better than it is? So don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get reminded of that video as well. I'm also going to try to do a lot of these as premieres so you can actually ask questions as the video is playing. And those are always kind of fun too. Thank you for watching. Remember, live your life in beta, and we'll see you next time.